Hey everyone, this is James from TDB here. Today I am going to be drinking a tea that I brought on to in Inbetweenisode all the way back in Inbetweenisode number 53 back in 2015. But I am going to be talking in a very different tenor than that specific episode, most likely, unless things dramatically change in a way that I don't expect. Going to be talking about the 2005 Yangqing Hao Yiwu Chawang, which along with the Taste of Hong Kong belongs in the teas that don't live up to their name in terms of tea name Hall of Fame. So this tea is one that has been a bit of a journey. One thing that I have been doing, I've been doing a lot of housekeeping, cleaning up different samples, cakes I don't want. This one would fall into that. I recently gave away the cake. Made myself just a small little sample so I could record this episode talking a bit about tuition and regrets. But another thing I've been doing, and this is kind of the archivist mind of me, so I've been kind of going through the old episodes and just basically dumping in the spreadsheet all the different pours that we brought on, just because I thought it'd be kind of interesting. And so that has basically made me go through kind of the older episodes. And for those of you that don't know, this show started, and it was primarily focused on kind of oolong teas, black teas, very general and general, just period. And eventually I did get into pour, and now we're sort of known as more pour people. So that's been kind of one of the evolutions. So as a result, you can sort of see us getting into pour, but you can also tell that we are very much novices towards pour at the beginning of the show. And so, as any novice is, there's going to be certain tuition. There's no shame in that. But going through these episodes makes me think about what went wrong and things I would do differently. And this episode is definitely one that, I think I would take back to some extent. At least my opinion on the tea has changed. If you look back at that in-between-isode, I talk a bit about Emmett, who at that point was just coordinating these new group buys on T-Chat. And YQHT is a tea that I didn't expect to have access to in the market. And I had just received one sample from Origin Tea right when they were, going out of business. And so, I thought that sample was great. I really, really liked it. That's a tea I have continued to like. That's the 2007 Jincha. But going through these teas and these old episodes has really caused me to think about my own different biases towards tea. And I think in many ways it makes sense to buy towards things that you like. Excuse me. So my own biases might gear me a little bit more towards smoother tea. The storage in this case is something that I've always liked, Yang storage. I continue to like Yang storage. I actually continue to like most of the Yangqing Hao teas I bought, which is something that not everyone still kind of believes. There are some people, I think Grill would be one of them, that would say their opinion of Yangqing Hao in general has changed. Mine hasn't. This tea, on the other hand, I think is not very good. And so I think, understanding the context of where I was coming from, I definitely talked the tea up far more than I would have anyways. So I think this tea is just kind of one of the weaker, less interesting Yangqing Hao teas. I've heard a couple of people even question whether it's Yiwu or not. I don't know about that or not, but I just don't think it's a particularly good tea. I think in particular its main flaws are that it's very, very weak. And if you think about what I particularly gravitate towards, I like traditional storage, so I'm okay with the stronger storage. I also like smoother tastes and things like that, teas that are not rough and bitter. And this tea, it's mellow to a fault, in my opinion. So yeah, let's get into the tea. Going to be revisiting this tea 10 years later. It's one that if you look at the blog, I have documented a couple different times. I revisited it in early 2020 when I was going over kind of like different how teas are aging and whatnot. And my rating of it went down, and when I tried it again, my rating went down even more. So definitely a tea that I am happy to have gotten rid of, and I wish I had got rid of it sooner. So yeah, let's get into the 2005 Yangqing Hao Yiwu Chawang. Okay, so I have made steep number 1 here. Here we go. Going to be making steep number 2 in just a second. Let's see how this tea is. If we want to give the tea as good of a shot as we can, we definitely want to push this tea just because I know the flaws are that it's basically weak and brings and very bland. It just doesn't bring that much to the table. I will say it smells nice. That's one thing that I have noted. And also perhaps another thing to note if we're reevaluating kind of like where we went wrong and whatnot. I mean, a common beginner trope is to taste a little bit too much through your nose, in particular when pu'er comes, so you're missing out on a couple of the other aspects like depth and throat feel and texture and whatnot. And I think this tea smells nice. I mean, I think it still smells nice. So, yeah, it's kind of like this dark herbal thing. Yeah, cheers. Little wood and little fruit. Not too herbal in the taste. And one thing you could say is like storage. Well, maybe I've stored this wrong. Well, I've stored a lot of other YQH teas in exactly the same way. Have no problems with them. In fact, it's one of my very regular drinks. So I think that one is very easily disproved in this case. There are always a lot of caveats you can toss at certain things, but in this case, I don't think that one would hold much water here. And yeah, a little bit about the context of these group buys. They're teas that I did not expect to ever become available again. Emmett was doing just kind of these unofficial group buys. Fast forward 10 years, and obviously it looks very different in hindsight, where Emmett has continued to source these teas for a while. And so he's kind of the main kind of proprietor of YQH at this point. But at that time, he was only really sourcing 3 different teas, 2 of which I would say are some of the weaker YQH teas, this and the Konglio. A tea that I think is a bit better than this, but I also gave away recently. I just don't think it's that good in context with the other ones. And a tea that I am actually quite fond of, the Qijong from 2007. And so he was selling those teas at a lower price than what Origin Tea had done. And this tea up to that point had gotten really rave reviews. In fact, you can actually read a pretty positive review from White Tea himself. But yeah, there were teas that had been... they'd been talked about in the West fairly positively overall, but the amount of information out there was a lot less, and so people didn't have any idea how much YQH, how many different productions there were. It took forever for people to figure out, to sort out the mess that was the 2004s, 400-gram cakes, 500-gram cakes, yada, yada, yada. So this is very, very early. This is one of the first group buys there. So I bought this one, then I bought the Konglio, because... yeah, those were the options. And then at a certain point, I realized that the Qijong was a tea that Origin Tea had sold. And so I ended up gravitating towards that. And so while I ended up with basically stamps of both the Yiwu Chawang and the Konglio, I quickly realized that the better teas were not those. So it's sort of an important context for that episode. Anyways, let's get back to the tea. A little creamy. I don't know. Yeah, this tea is just bland. It does not do much. A little woody. It's a little sour. A little tangy. As far as Yiwu teas, where I like most of what I have, in those contexts, it's quite bad. Cheers. Okay, body picks up a little bit. Still definitely pretty light. Not particularly sweet either. Yeah, I think this is a tea that, and I've commented on this in the past, I think this is a tea that the Yang storage actually may have helped, just because the Yang storage is so distinctive, so strong. I think it does help to bring something to the table in this case. In this case, the tea material itself seems so mediocre. Yeah, woody, bland. It's like, I really don't want to be drinking this, to be honest. Maybe there's a little too much bias coming through here, but I have had this tea enough times that I just don't. The real is, I just don't care for it that much. Still smells okay. Yeah, kind of a dark Yiwu note to this. But compared to the activity of something like even the 2007 Yangqing Hao Yiwu Chawang or the Qijong, this is just doesn't have very much going on. Okay. We will give this steep a fair shot, and we will call it there. Yeah, and who wants a 500-gram chonker like this taking up room in your storage, your precious storage space, if it's something that I don't think is ever going to be very good. Smells of some fruits and things like that. The aftertaste in the mouth so far, it's like a vaguely sweet, pretty front-focused, nothing going on in the throat or whatever. Yeah. And I recently had the Leon, the Tuji, just maybe a few days ago, and those are still very tasty teas in my opinion. Texture is weird now too. It's thin. It's like when you push it, some of the other flaws come out too. So it's like one of those that you really got to push to get anything out of, and then when you push, it's still not good. A little bitter. Probably indicates I'm hitting it hard enough. Not very sweet. And yeah, definitely looking forward to moving on to the next tea here. This one is just not very good. I am going to give this a 4 out of 10. Value over average tea owned, I'm going to give this a -3. I'd say it's about 3 grades worse than the average Yiwu I own. So yeah, not very good. Value over average tea owned. You can check out an episode I recently released talking a bit about that. But just basically looking at it in context of kind of the stash of Yiwus that I have and I enjoy drinking, I would say it's well below average. Okay, yeah. So thank you all for tuning in. Let me know how you like this episode, and I will see you all next time. Cheers.